I was just trying to be funny with my mom, sending her a whiny text about how broke I was and how I might have to find a sugar mama to survive, but somehow my clumsy thumbs betrayed me, and I sent it to Samantha Carter, the famously untouchable, ice-cold CEO of Carter Enterprises, my terrifying boss, and within seconds she replied, not to me, but to her assistant, "If Assistant Miller dares to get a mistress, tell Uncle Sam to crack down on indecency and get him arrested for illegal solicitation," and I swear I could feel my soul leave my body when I realized the message was unsendable, the damage irreversible, and my resignation letter was already being mentally drafted with full formatting, font choices and all, so I just turned on airplane mode and faceplanted into my bed like a corpse, fully prepared to quit in the morning. Except the CEO I thought would fire me started texting me non-stop like some melodramatic rom-com heroine gone feral. "Ethan, where are you? I know you're not asleep. You wouldn't really keep a mistress, would you? You don't even have money. You want it for free now," and by 6 a.m., she was hitting me with, "Baby, why don't you look at me? Am I not prettier than them?" And all I could think was, what alternate reality have I been dragged into? Just a few weeks ago, I was sending out desperate resumes to every major company in New York after my mom bet I couldn't survive on my own for a month without crawling back home, and I was smugly twirling around my 200-square-foot studio apartment like I'd made it when Carter Enterprises emailed me for an interview, and somehow I nailed it with my overflowing charisma, anxiety and luck. Landing the low-level internship assistant role to the big boss herself, Samantha Carter, also known as the Buddha CEO of Wall Street, equal parts flawless, ruthless, and allergic to emotions, the kind of woman who could freeze boiling water with a glance and made me do everything from bringing her coffee, water, ice water, recycled paper, heated milk, sparkling water with lemon, all in the same 10-minute window, and don't even get me started on when she called me at 10 p.m. to bring her documents to her penthouse and opened the door wrapped in nothing but a bath towel with wet hair and bare feet dripping onto the marble, and I swear I blacked out on the spot because all I could see was soap suds and a lawsuit, and she casually whispered, "Thanks, you've worked hard," like I wasn't a man fighting for his life, and she basically made me her personal on-call servant, calling me 800 times a day until my dignity evaporated like my savings account. So after a particularly brutal day, I sent my mom a message, "Your poor son is about to become someone's kept man, please wire cash ASAP," and felt so proud of my own comedic timing that I didn't even double-check the recipient before I hopped in the shower, humming like life was good, only to come out and see my phone exploding with messages not from my mom, but from Samantha Carter, me boss, my CEO, my impending executioner, and it hit me that I had just called her my wife and implied I was financially dependent on her, and in the sheer horror of it all, I retyped my resignation letter again, sighed, and told myself, tomorrow. Just disappear tomorrow, but then came the string of green bubbles that turned my whole world upside down. "You really sent that to me? Wife? Really? You think I'm just some young mistress," followed by a tidal wave of increasingly unhinged texts timestamped from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. "Assistant Miller, I saw the marriage status on your employee file. It says single. Is this a dare? Are you doing a bet? Are you ghosting me on purpose?" And then, "I'm not like those basic women. Your little tactics don't work on me. Stop pretending you're asleep," and then, "You're not seriously trying to get something for free, right?" And finally, "Baby, why don't you look at me? I'm hotter than any mistress," and at that point I didn't know if I should laugh or cry because I was pretty sure she was having a full-blown breakdown in my text thread, and if that wasn't enough, when I finally mustered up the courage to type back some lame excuse like "MS. Carter, I typed wrong. Meant to text my mom. Sorry." Grinning face with sweat, she replied, "I'm typing," stared at me through the phone for 5 minutes, spiritually, then said, "Oh, I was drunk. My friend typed it." I have no recollection, which was the most obvious lie ever, considering Samantha Carter can outdrink grown men and still outnegotiate billion-dollar mergers without a hiccup, and to make matters worse, she then posted a group-wide message in the company's Slack at 3 a.m. that said, "Has anyone seen my boyfriend? Why hasn't he replied to me?" and the entire office exploded into chaos as every night owl in the company joined the gossip groups. One brave VP asked if maybe her mystery boyfriend was ghosting her, and the rest started taking bets on who it was, while another said she should seduce him with her looks and fix it with her body. And I choked on my midnight ramen because the man who said that was usually the most serious guy in the office, and then in another group chat called Spill the THQ. Everyone was going full detective mode. Is the CEO actually in love? It can't be someone from the company, right? Unless wait, who didn't respond to her IG story last night, and just when things couldn't get worse, Brandon Collins, team lead from the overseas department and certified office peacock, waltzes in claiming he was the guy who missed her text last night, basically trying to plant his flag on her like she was a luxury yacht. But no one responded to him because even the HR intern knew that Samantha Carter would rather date her assistant than settle for a narcissist with bleached hair and no self-awareness. And as I was scrolling through all the memes and chaos in the third gossip group, CEO's Secret Watchers, someone posted, "I bet it's that new intern in her office, Ethan Miller. Babyface. Looks soft. She's totally into him," and I wanted to slam my laptop shut and run into traffic because I was officially toast, and just as I was trying to escape into the elevator, I got another green bubble ping, "Where are you, baby?" And my soul left my body again, and when I didn't answer, she immediately unsent the message and followed it up with, "Where's the report? Meet me in the office," and I was already shaking like a leaf, telling myself, "Take the paycheck, do the job, don't die," and walked into her office with a forced smile, carrying her water like a condemned man carrying his own last rites, only for her to take off her glasses, glance up at me, and say, "Why are you trembling? You didn't bring your ears to work today," and I knew then, this woman wasn't just playing anymore, she was hunting. I swear I was ready to fake a dentist appointment or throw myself down the stairs just to avoid being seen by Samantha that morning, but no matter how many detours I took around the office, her eyes found me like heat-seeking missiles the second I stepped through the glass doors of Carter Enterprises. And what made it worse was that the whole company was now buzzing with energy like bees high on match, of everyone pretending to work while secretly staring at their screens, group chats lighting up faster than fire alarms, and as I passed by, I could literally feel heads turning and whispers bubbling behind me, especially in the third gossip group, now renamed CEO's Secret Watchers 3.0, like they were a reality TV fan club, because Samantha's late-night meltdown had sparked an unofficial internal investigation into who her mysterious baby was, and just when I thought maybe they'd get bored, Samantha decided to fuel the fire by posting an Instagram story with a coffee cup in the caption, "My future boyfriend looks so soft when he calls me," time-stamped at exactly the moment I'd sent her the warm water this morning, which, yes, might have been a coincidence if it wasn't for the fact that she added a heart emoji and the same glass mug I'd used was clearly in frame, and now people were doing side-by-side comparisons of her cup and mine like it was a crime scene, posting screenshots and polling the Slack groups like, "Is it Ethan or Brandon? Vote now." And speaking of Brandon, Aka Peacock in residency came swaggering into the break room with the exact same coffee as Samantha's, announcing, "She likes caramel oat milk, so I brought two," and I had to physically restrain myself from slapping the foam off his smug face, especially since everyone was now side-eyeing me like I was either the main character or a third wheel, and the moment I tried to retreat to my desk, Samantha texted me again, "Where are you? Don't make me come find you," and I swear I nearly yeeted my phone into the vending machine out of reflex, and to avoid direct contact, I did what any emotionally underdeveloped man would do: faked being sick and took a day off, thinking that maybe one day would cool things down, maybe people would forget, maybe Samantha would move on and find someone better suited for her luxury tastes and Yandra tendencies. But apparently that's not how the universe works, because while I was curled up at home with a popsicle and pretending to have a fever, Samantha showed up at my apartment with a thermos of brown sugar water, a tray of brown sugar dumplings, and a pack of fever-reducing patches, barging in with the audacity of a woman on a mission while I was literally sitting shirtless in my living room in sweatpants and trying to hide the evidence of fake luxury goods scattered around, like the knockoff Ferrari keys I'd accidentally left on the table or the fake Yeezy display wall I claimed belonged to my roommates, plural, male, imaginary. And the worst part was she just smiled at everything like she was mentally screenshotting the whole scene, casually placing the dumplings down and walking straight into my kitchen like she owned the place, offering me hot soup with a tone so gentle it actually made me break out in nervous sweat, and as I tried to play along with the "I'm sick" act, she sat down beside me, brushing the hair off my forehead and feeling my non-existent fever like she wasn't the same woman who threatened to call the cops on me 48 hours ago, and for a second, it was peaceful, too peaceful, until I saw her glance at the shelf full of fake designer watches, and I panicked and said something stupid like, "They're props from an influencer collab," which she somehow accepted without comment, and after forcing down the sugar-heavy dumplings that made my stomach do backflips, I passed out on the couch, only to wake up in my bed with a blanket over me, realizing she'd carried me there and tucked me in. And when I stumbled back out to find her still sitting at the dining table typing away on her laptop like she'd been there the whole time, my brain short-circuited, because she was supposed to be at the office leading board meetings, not in my apartment watching me sleep and organizing my kitchenware, and when I weakly groaned from a legit stomach-catcha thanks, Popsicle rushed to my side like a worried nurse, touching my face and whispering, "Told you that." Popsicle was a mistake, and just as I was about to brush it off, she called her Harvard med school friend who ran in with a whole suitcase of supplies like I'd been poisoned, and while the diagnosis was literally, "ate cold stuff too fast," Samantha looked like she'd been told I had 6 hours to live, pacing the room and glaring at her friend like the poor doctor had committed malpractice, and once her friend left, she returned to my side, wiping sweat off my forehead and softly saying, "This is what you get for lying about being sick," and I swear I wanted to vanish into the bed, but I didn't have the strength, so I just laid there while she held my hand and sat beside me all night, flinching at every sound like I was a delicate baby bird, and around 2 a.m., when I stirred and opened one eye, she looked at me with those soft brown eyes and asked, "Can I chase you now?" And I, being the tired, stupid man that I am, nodded, mostly out of guilt and partial dehydration, but when she leaned down and kissed my forehead and whispered, "You've officially been caught," I realized I had just opened Pandora's box, because from that moment on, Samantha Carter was no longer just my boss, she was my self-declared girlfriend, and judging by the way she started picking me up from work every day, sending me food deliveries with handwritten notes like, "Eat well, don't flirt," and dropping hints all over Instagram like, "My fiancé makes the best ramen," smiling face with heart eyes, I was now trapped in a full-blown CEO love story, whether I wanted it or not, and the only upside was that the entire company now knew, and Gossip Group 3.0 became 4.0 with daily analysis like, "Is Ethan secretly the heir to a conglomerate?" or "Did Samantha lose a bet?" And I thought things couldn't get more absurd until my mom suddenly called me midweek to say, "Ethan, someone just showed up at our door to propose on your behalf." And when I raced home thinking it was some scam, I found Samantha sitting in my childhood living room, sipping tea with my mom like they were besties, wearing the most country-style outfit I'd ever seen her in, complete with floral sleeves and braided hair, and before I could even shout, "What is happening?" my dad told her I was the new nanny and tried to lie his way out of the awkwardness by saying, "Sorry, she just started working here," while pushing me into the back room to change clothes, and I could hear Samantha giggling behind him, fully aware I was dying inside, and by the time I came back out, she and my mom were exchanging wine bottles and toasting to our engagement, and the woman I'd once called the Ice Queen of Wall Street was now being called daughter-in-law by my mom like this was a sitcom, not real life, and when I pulled her aside and whispered, "Why didn't you tell me you were gonna pull this stunt?" she just wiped my hand gently and said, "Because I couldn't wait," and I swear I blacked out again, not from illness this time, but from pure emotional chaos, and when we walked out together, she squeezed my fingers and whispered, "You're still on probation, so you better behave," and I gulped because I knew the next part of this story wasn't gonna get any less chaotic. I honestly thought the worst was over after the whole accidental engagement announcement at my parents' house disaster, but the second Samantha dropped the actual Instagram bomb with a shadowy photo of us walking side by side and the caption, "Finally found the one I've been waiting for" ring, the company imploded harder than my dignity. And I barely had time to put on socks the next morning before my phone lit up like it had been possessed. Likes, DMs, tagged reposts, blurry office hallway shots, where people tried to catch us holding hands, even a poll in the Gossip Patrol 3.0 group chat asking, "Is Ethan Miller husband material?" and the comments ranged from, "He looks soft, I'd trust him with my cat, to his baby face is hiding something feral, and then there was Brandon Collins, the clown prince of denial, who apparently thought the world still revolved around him and walked into the assistant lounge with the nerve to ask, "Did everyone see Samantha's latest post?" Pretty romantic, huh? Like he wasn't the only one left out of the engagement fanfiction unfolding in real time, and when no one responded to his bait, he got all pouty and muttered, "Anyway, I brought coffee for MS. Carter again today," and strutted toward the executive suite like he was delivering holy water, only to come stomping out 2 minutes later looking like he'd been stabbed in the ego. Turns out Samantha took one look at the drink and said, "Wrong temperature," then motioned to me instead and said, "Ethan knows how I like it," which made the entire assistant room gasp louder than when our stock spiked last quarter. And Brandon's face went from pale to red to "I just bit into a lemon" yellow in seconds, especially when she called out across the room, "Assistant Miller, I'm thirsty," and every pair of eyes zeroed in on me like I was Moses parting the Red Sea, and yeah, I knew this was probably her flexing her territory, but damn, it was working, so I walked in with a calm face and 2 drinks, one warm, one cool, because I'd learned by now that this woman's preferences changed like Wi-Fi signals, and sure enough, she sipped the warm one, sighed, and said, "Perfect," then gave me a look that said she'd eat me alive if we weren't in public, and Brandon, still standing awkwardly by the door, tried to play it cool with mess. "Carter, I can bring you coffee next time," and she deadpan replied, "That won't be necessary," before waving him off like a mosquito, and when I tried to sneak out quietly, she added, "Oh, and Ethan, stay for a moment," which basically meant trap unlocked, so I stood there as she reviewed a document, not even reading it but pretending to, just so she could stare at me from behind her glasses like I was a snack she hadn't finished. And when I finally escaped back to my desk, my phone vibrated with a new message in, "Spill the THQ, y'all, did you see Brandon get bodied just now?" followed by someone photoshopping a gravestone with his name on it, and I nearly spit out my coffee laughing until my phone lit up again with a new message from Samantha, "Come with me to the Hamptons charity gala. I'll give you $10,000 for the night," and I swear I choked on air because I was still recovering from fake fever and now she was out here bribing me to play boyfriend in public, so I replied, "Is this a bribe?" and she responded, "It's a business transaction. You're still my assistant. You'll get overtime pay," and I didn't know what shook me more, the casual tone or the fact that she just knew money was my weakness, so I gave in, showed up at the gala in a way too formal black suit, and stood awkwardly next to her as every bachelor in a 5-mile radius tried to flirt with her only for her to lean against me and say, "I'm taken," while casually linking her arm through mine like it was the most natural thing in the world. And yeah, I was flustered, but I also couldn't deny that being with her like this felt good, dangerous but good, until Brandon showed up in a white tux like he was trying to crash a wedding, walked up to us with a fake smile and said, "Didn't expect to see you here, MS. Carter," and she blinked at him like he was a passing fly and said, "I didn't invite you," and when he insisted he was just mingling for work, she smiled coldly and dropped the final blow, "You'll have to pay for your own expenses. This wasn't a business event for you," and the look on his face was so priceless I almost framed it, but he still didn't give up, glaring at me and muttering, "Why him?" to which I calmly replied, "Because unlike you, I don't flirt with my boss to climb the ladder. I just bring the right coffee," and Samantha, bless her chaotic soul, put her arm around my shoulder, pulled me close, and whispered, "And I allow him to have ulterior motives," loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, sending Brandon spiraling into a full-on meltdown as he stormed off like a villain from a teen drama, and by the time the event ended, I was back in her car trying not to pass out from social anxiety, while she sat beside me glowing with satisfaction like she'd just closed a billion-dollar deal. And the next day, all hell broke loose in the office when Brandon showed up demanding to speak to HR, claiming wrongful treatment, only for Samantha to walk in mid-tantrum, stare him down, and say, "I already processed your termination. You can collect your things," and the entire assistant office turned into a live-action meme while Brandon got dragged out by security yelling about nepotism and betrayal and, "But I loved you," like he was in a soap opera, and as if that wasn't dramatic enough, Samantha turned to me, took my handies, in front of everyone and said, "Since it's going public eventually, this is my fiancé, Ethan Miller," and the group chat servers basically died that moment, because every assistant, VP, and intern Now knew that the coldest, most feared CEO in the city had officially claimed her intern boyfriend like he was the last cookie on earth, and while I wanted to crawl under my desk and vanish, she was beaming like she'd just won the lottery, and deep down, I knew this was only the beginning of whatever madness she had planned next. Moving in with Samantha Carter wasn't something I'd planned, at all, but the day she grabbed my hand in the office and introduced me as her fiancé, the universe clearly decided my free trial of peace was over, because that same evening she casually handed me a keycard to her luxury apartment like we were exchanging business cards, and before I could even protest with something like, "Shouldn't we discuss this first?" she was already texting me directions, meal preferences, and the Wi-Fi password, as if she'd rehearsed the whole thing in her head 1,000 times, and honestly, what was I supposed to do, say no to a woman who fires people like she's swiping left on dating apps? So yeah, I moved in, or technically I was relocated, into a penthouse that looked like a magazine spread, and the moment I walked in, I was greeted by the scent of white musk, crystal clear glass everything, and the faint echo of financial domination, and let me tell you, living with a CEO is not as glamorous as TikTok makes it seem, especially when said CEO wears full suits at home, buttons her shirts to the top even when she's on the couch, and insists on keeping the AC at Arctic Research Lab temperature while sipping chamomile tea like it's blood wine, and no matter how many gifts she showered me with, designer shoes, limited edition colognes, custom-made watches, I couldn't shake the fact that she treated our relationship like a quarterly investment, carefully tracking emotions like stock graphs, giving just enough affection to keep me flustered but never crossing the line into anything physical, and I swear the most action I got was when her hand accidentally grazed mine while passing the salt. So after 3 weeks of intense sexual tension and zero execution, I snapped, cornered her on the couch, pulled her gently onto my lap, and said, "If you're gonna tease me like this every day, I might as well file for emotional damages," and instead of slapping me into next week, she smirked, leaned forward with that dangerously calm voice and said, "You want to see? You can look," like I was a misbehaving student being given one chance to redeem myself, and she unbuttoned her shirt just 3 buttons, because of course she stops at 3, the saddest, and as my eyes dropped to the sliver of skin she revealed, she added, "But looking doesn't mean touching," and I swear my soul left my body for a second, but I was too far gone to stop, so I growled, "Not just look. I want to touch too," and that's when she lost it, laughed, straddled me, and whispered in my ear, "You're drooling. Tell me you're coming, or I'll turn off the lights myself," and the moment she reached for the switch, it was like she activated her final form. Clothes disappeared faster than my willpower, and the last thing I remember before blacking out from sheer overstimulation was her breathy voice saying, "Good boy. Don't move. Let sister take care of you," and when I woke up the next morning, I felt like I'd been hit by a truck, every joint sore, my back aching, and Samantha snuggled up beside me looking like a post-battle goddess, hair messy, skin glowing, and I tried to sneak away quietly, but the second I moved an inch, she yawned, grabbed my arm, and said in that sweet post-sleep voice, "It's too early. Stay with me," and my brain short-circuited again because how could someone so cold at work be this clingy in private, and as I lay there pretending not to blush, she asked out of nowhere, "Don't you want to know when I started liking you?" And I hesitated because I honestly did, but also didn't want to admit I'd been wondering the same, so I said nothing, and she answered anyway, "It wasn't love at first sight. That doesn't exist. It was attraction, maybe. Your face. Your awkwardness. How seriously you took pouring coffee." I found it cute, and I was floored because this woman had made a whole empire and now she was saying she noticed me for being an overachieving coffee courier, and before I could process that, she said something that absolutely wrecked me, "I used to live in Causeway Bay when I was little." "Did you?" And suddenly memories flashed me, childhood summers, the sound of piano music from the house next door, the girl with the mask who always looked sick but played beautifully, and my heart dropped when I realized, "You were that girl," and she nodded, "You were the boy who used to sit outside the window and clap," and now everything made terrifying sense. She didn't just fall for her in turn, she re-met the boy she'd once admired as a kid, and now she was doing everything she could to reclaim what she'd lost. And while I was still stuck in emotional limbo, she crawled on top of me again, wrapped herself in the blanket, and said, "Back then, I wanted to be your sister. Now I want to grind soy milk with you," and before I could even pretend to act innocent, she kissed me like we had all the time in the world, and that was the first time I truly realized Samantha Carter was not just the CEO of Carter Enterprises, she was a full-blown romantic maniac, and I was the soft idiot who somehow ended up as her emotional support human. And when we returned to the office after the weekend, I fully expected people to treat us differently, but no one even blinked, probably because she'd already mentally deleted anyone who disrespected me, and when Brandon's name came up, she just waved it away like a piece of lint, and when I asked why she hadn't blocked his number, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "Why should I block something that doesn't exist in my world?" And I swear if she weren't terrifying, I'd say that was romantic, and while I was still digesting that, she asked me to attend another formal dinner with her, this time for her family's board of trustees, and I agreed, not realizing what I was walking into, because when I showed up in a sharp black suit and she stepped out in a floor-length backless dress, the entire event froze like someone hit pause, and all her uncles and cousins kept asking who I was, and she just smiled sweetly and said, "My fiancé," while looping her arm into mine like I was the prize in a silent auction, and while I was smiling like an idiot, one of her aunts pulled me aside and whispered, "You're very brave. She's never introduced anyone before," and that's when it hit me wasn't just some accidental text gone viral, I was her first, and probably her last, and as scary as that sounded it didn't feel bad at all. I should have known that once Samantha Carter went public with our engagement, there was no going back to normal, because every day after that felt like I was starring in a drama where I was both the clueless male lead and the emotional punching bag, especially once we started getting followed by co-workers who were obviously spying for Gossip Group, Spill the Tea 4.0, which now included everyone from accounting to legal, and to make things worse, Samantha was acting more aggressively affectionate than ever, picking me up from work, feeding me bites of her lunch during board meetings, and even changing my name in her contacts to "my baby bear face," which I only found out when she FaceTimed me in front of the entire exec team and said, "Hi baby, miss you," like she wasn't the most terrifying person in a 100-mile radius, and I swear I saw 3 assistants drop their pens from the shock. But none of them dared speak because Samantha's fiancé protection mode had fully activated, and she'd gone from cold goddess to overbearing girlfriend faster than I could process, like the time I got a slight headache in the office and she sent her personal driver to deliver organic pain relief oils, a neck massager, and a vitamin drip kit all within 30 minutes, and I was just sitting there trying to finish an Excel sheet while the group chat was blowing up like, "Does Ethan have cancer? Is she turning him into a trophy husband?" and "Blink twice if you're safe," and honestly, I wasn't even sure anymore, because while I was getting foot massages and 5-course dinners, I was also being emotionally whiplashed every night, like how she'd tuck me in and say, "Sweet dreams," only to wake me up at 2 a.m. to whisper, "If you ever cheat on me, I'll ruin your life," in the softest voice imaginable, and then kiss my forehead like she hadn't just threatened me with bankruptcy. And one time I left my phone charging on the kitchen counter and she found a text from a college friend named Maya, classmate, and I came back to find the message bubble had been opened. Emoji reacted with a thumbs down, and replied with, "He's taken. Good night," and when I confronted her, she just shrugged and said, she was too flirty, even though the message literally said, "Good luck on the gala," and now Maya won't text me anymore because she thinks my girlfriend is an ex-mafia heiress, which honestly isn't that far off. And speaking of the gala, Samantha took me to another one, this time some high-level financial elite thing with billionaires and tech CEOs, and I tried my best to behave, wearing the custom-tailored tux she picked out, slicking back my hair, walking beside her like a decent trophy partner, but of course drama follows her like a shadow, and mid-event, some young finance bro tried to approach her, glass of wine in hand, saying, "Haven't seen you around lately, Samantha. Still single?" And she tightened her grip on my waist, smiled sweetly, and said, "Actually, I'm engaged. Ethan, say hi," and I gave the most awkward nod of my life while the guy looked at me like I was gum stuck to his loafer, and when he smirked and said, "Didn't take you for the clingy type," Samantha smiled wider and said, "I'm not clingy. I'm possessive. There's a difference," and the guy's face fell so fast I thought gravity broke, and I honestly thought we could walk away without more chaos. But then I heard, "That's not what you said when we dated," and I turned around to see this dude's girlfriend, tall, blonde, petty smile, sipping champagne and trying to bait Samantha into a catfight, but my woman just tilted her head, replied, "That was 3 years ago. You were a phase. He's permanent," and dragged me onto the dance floor like we were in a rom-com finale, spinning me once and pulling me close while everyone stared, probably wondering how the hell the coldest CEO in Manhattan had become this clingy, flirty, possessive girlfriend who danced in heels like it was war. And later that night when we got home, I expected her to brush it off like usual, but instead she sat me down on the edge of the bed and asked, "Do you feel embarrassed when I act like that in public?" And I paused, looked at her, saw the faintest crack in her expression, like maybe underneath all that boss energy she was still a girl afraid of being too much, and I said, honestly, "No. I just feel lucky I didn't send that 'baby I'm broke' text to someone else," and she laughed so hard she fell back onto the bed, eyes shining like I'd just given her $1,000,000, and then pulled me down next to her and whispered, "You're mine, you know that, right?" And I nodded, because what else could I say when her hand was already sliding under my shirt like it had a mind of its own, and that night was different, softer but intense, like she was making a point to memorize every part of me. And when I woke up the next morning, she wasn't in bed but in the kitchen, wearing my oversized hoodie and making eggs like some domestic fantasy, and for a moment I forgot she was the same woman who once threatened to fire me for bringing the wrong water temperature, and I realized I didn't want to leave, not just because the bed was soft and the food was amazing, but because she made me feel like I mattered, like I wasn't just a background character in someone else's success story. And later at work, I overheard people whispering things like, "I bet Ethan's just using her," or, "He probably manipulated her emotionally," and I wanted to scream, but Samantha beat me to it by walking into the room, announcing, "Anyone who disrespects Ethan is disrespecting me," and then smiling like nothing had happened, and I realized then that love with her wasn't something calm or ordinary. It was chaotic, loud, intense, and maybe even dangerous, but it was real, and it was mine. By the time Samantha started showing up at work in my hoodies and leaving her lipstick on my coffee mugs like it was a territorial claim, I knew there was no going back to who I was before this whole accidental wife text drama began, because now the entire company had collectively accepted that I, Ethan Miller, broke in turn turned personal assistant turned surprise fiancé, was officially the center of our CEO's attention, affection, and frequent Instagram soft launches, and honestly, I was starting to feel like I belonged, like I wasn't just a glitch in the matrix but an actual main character in my own story, especially when she started casually mentioning me in meetings like, "Ethan thinks this campaign tone is too cold, and I agree," or, "My fiancé made an interesting point last night during pillow talk," and I had to physically hold my soul inside my body while the VPs acted like that wasn't the wildest sentence they'd ever heard, but the real chaos kicked in when her daddy's, Mr. Carter, the elusive chairman of Carter Enterprises, flew back from Europe and said he wanted to meet the young man who stole my daughter's heart, and I've never blacked out from sheer anxiety before, but I came real close that day, because this man was basically the final boss of our little corporate fairy tale, and when we finally sat down for lunch in a terrifyingly quiet private room at a steakhouse that cost more than my entire monthly rent, he looked me straight in the eye and said, "Do you love her?" And for once, I didn't try to be funny, I didn't dodge or deflect, I just nodded and said, "Yes, sir. I really do," and he just nodded back and said, "Good. Don't disappoint her. If you break her heart, I'll buy your entire neighborhood and turn it into a parking lot," and I was like, "Yeah, sounds fair," and later Samantha asked me how it went, and I told her, "Great, I think he only half threatened me," and she grinned and said, "That's basically a blessing," and after that, things somehow got even sweeter between us. Started learning how to cook, which was a disaster I will never forget, 3 smoke alarms in one night, and I started learning how to exist next to her without feeling like I was living in a high-budget K-drama, and we developed this rhythm: her fixing my tie in the morning while complaining I drooled in my sleep, me sneaking forehead kisses while she pretended to hate it but posted about it on her IG story 30 minutes later with captions like, "Someone woke me up with kisses, unamused face, red heart," and on the weekends she'd drag me to farmers markets wearing matching sunglasses, then pretend she didn't plan it when we ran into her high society friends, and one night while we were watching bad TV and eating instant noodles on the couch, she turned to me and said, "Do you remember the first text you sent me?" And I laughed so hard I choked on a noodle because of course I remembered the infamous, "Mom, I'm broke, I need to keep a young wife" message, and I said, "Yeah, I was trying to beg for grocery money," and she giggled and said, "Well, I ended up being the wife." Plot twist, and then she reached into the drawer, pulled out a small box, and before I could process what was happening, opened it to reveal a silver band with a tiny inscription inside that read, "My accident, my miracle," and said, "Marry me for real," and I just stared at her, blinking, brain fully frozen like a Windows 98 loading screen, until I finally nodded and whispered, "Yeah, obviously." And she slipped the ring on my finger like she'd been waiting her whole life for that moment, and then promptly said, "Great. Now sign this prenup," and we both burst out laughing because of course she had a prenup, and of course I signed it because I wasn't marrying her for her money, even though she once sent me a limited edition sports car just because I said I liked the color red, and when we announced our official engagement to the company the next week, HR had to issue a formal email reminding employees that dating the CEO is not, in fact, a shortcut to promotion, and that Brandon had the audacity to reapply for a job through an anonymous online portal, but someone found out and posted the resume in Gossip Group 5.0 with the caption, "Nice try bro," face with tears of joy, and the chaos was delicious, and on the night of our wedding, as I stood there watching her walk toward me in a custom white gown with a slit higher than my credit score, I couldn't help but think back to that exact moment I panicked and turned on airplane mode, fully convinced I'd ruined my life, only to somehow stumble into the greatest accident I'd ever made, and when she finally stood in front of me, veil lifted, eyes sparkling, she whispered, "Still think I'm prettier than that young wife you texted about," and I just grinned and replied, "You are the young wife," and the whole crowd awed so hard it felt like we were living in a fanfiction finale, and from that day on, I stopped wondering how I got here and just started enjoying every second of the ride, whether it was watching her yell at suppliers in 5 languages, crawling into bed with her after a long day, or waking up to her pretending not to care that I drooled again, because she wasn't just my boss anymore, or even just my wife. She was my story, and I was hers, and together we'd built something messy, hilarious, chaotic, and weirdly beautiful out of one stupid, misfired message, and honestly, I wouldn't change a single word.